Are we live?
Yes, we are live on YouTube.
Okay, great. Welcome back to the May 11th public hearing of the Landmarks Preservation Commission. We will resume this afternoon's session with our public hearing agenda, beginning with item number 3. This hearing at this point is being held via Zoom and live streamed on YouTube. So if you'd like to watch the proceedings, please visit our YouTube channel to watch the live stream. If you'd like to speak on any items this afternoon, please join the meeting at the estimated time on the agenda, and we will present the information for the meeting ID at the moment that we're taking testimony as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Corey Harala to take us through the afternoon.
Thanks, Sarah. And we'll begin the first of 2 items in the afternoon session with item number 3, LPC 21-06190, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 877, lot 74, 4 Lexington Avenue, aka 4 to 8 Lexington Avenue, and 122 to 130 East 22nd Street, the Russell Sage Foundation Building and Annex individual landmark. This is a Florentine Palazzo style office building designed by Grosvenor Atterbury, built in 1912 to 13, with a penthouse addition built in 1922 to 23, and an annex and hyphen designed by Grosvenor Atterbury and John A. Tompkins II, and built in 1930 to 31. And the application is to install a barrier-free access ramp.
And the applicants have joined the hearing. You now have control of the presentation. Just click on the screen and you can advance through. Remember to unmute yourself and state your name for the record. Thank you.
Thanks. My name is Andrew Harrington. I'm with Matisse Architecture and Design. So I'll be presenting our proposal today. There we go. So as was mentioned, we are at 4 Lexington Avenue. It's the Russell Sage Foundation Building, and we'll be proposing an ADA ramp and steps and some door entrance modifications in order to provide a barrier-free access on the East 22nd Street side. So the building is an individual landmark. It's located just a block north of the Gramercy Park Landmark Historic District, but it is not within that district. It's an individual landmark. And here you can see a tax photo, and it is on the corner of Lexington Avenue and East 22nd Street and was designated an individual landmark in 2000. So here's some of the existing conditions around both facades. The 2 top photos, you can see the Lexington Avenue side. You can see that dark area is the historic but now sealed entrance on the Lexington Avenue side, and the building residents now use a more modern entrance with the green awning there. We're not proposing any changes to the Lexington Avenue side today. And then the 2 lower photos are on the East 22nd Street facade. You can also see a historic entrance there, and that will be the location we're proposing for the ramp. And that's primarily due to the less elevation grade change between the lobby and the East 22nd Street side. It's about 1/3 the grade change as on the Lexington Avenue side. So that'll allow us to have a lot smaller and less intrusive of a ramp. And then the 3 photos at the bottom, those are some material conditions around the building. So the facade is sandstone, but around the base, all of the horizontal elements are this pink granite. And you'll see that the pink granite is also used around the curb. Here's some existing ramps in the neighborhood. Because it's not in a historic district itself, none of these are in the historic district. But the lower photograph is actually a ramp directly adjacent to where we are proposing our ramp. Here's a building plan. So Lexington Avenue is on the left side, and you can see where the awning and the current main residential access and entrance is, and also the sealed historic entrance. And then on the 22nd Street side, this will be the entrance we will be locating our ramp at. And there's another sealed historic entrance further west. So here's a photo and a rendering showing the facade existing on the left and our proposed ramp on the right. So we've been able to center it on the overall opening here, and the ramp goes to the west or to the right in this view because the sidewalk is sloping slightly up there, so it allows our ramp to be a couple feet shorter. And then we've located a step, 2 steps actually on the left-hand side, so that preserves the step access as well to the entrance here. And then you can see in the plans below, existing and proposed, we're able to maintain our clearances over 5 feet to any obstructions such as the tree pit and the fire hydrant, so we're able to preserve sidewalk access. Now, because the landing requires the turning radius for the ADA accessibility, we are switching the operable door from the center panel right now to the left-hand side panel. So the doors are historic and the 2 side ones have been fixed in place and are no longer operable, but we will be removing and swapping the center one with the left-hand side one in order to allow the turning radiuses and the ramp to be centered on the opening. So the doors will be existing, but they will be modified with an added electric operable hardware for ADA accessibility. Here's a side rendering. So this would be if you're walking down the sidewalk, what you would see. And in a section below, you can see how we are staying as close as we can to the building to preserve as much clearance and sidewalk access as possible. And then materiality wise, the railings of the ramp will be brass. So we'll be matching the frames of the doors. The brass there, you can see it's been tarnished, that will be cleaned up. So the new railings will almost essentially match exactly the brass frames of the doors. And then the stone ramp material will be matching the pink granite of the steps that are there, and also the pink granite of the curb directly on the street side of the ramp. And we will be installing a door operator button at the end of one of the railings in the center, so that the door can provide ADA clearance without, while keeping the historic hardware handle on the exterior. And that basically sums up the proposed work we're doing. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. We do have a couple of questions. Commissioner Shamir Barron, followed by Commissioner Devonshire.
Thank you. Can you just tell us a little bit more about the material and vintage of the sort of areaway on the Lexington Avenue side? I don't know if there's a little moat there. I cannot remember, even though it's down the street here. You could look at it out the window, but and what that's made of. Is that the pink granite as well? Then is it a later addition?
So yeah, I'll zoom in here and I can hopefully help you see that a little better in these photos.
Yeah.
But so the steps of this, so this is essentially original condition here. It's been modified though, because the entrance has been moved here. But the steps are the pink granite, and the band at the sidewalk level is the pink granite, but then the vertical planter is a stucco that matches the sandstone. So it may have originally been sandstone as well, but now it is stuccoed over.
So you're saying that the steps were originally there without that vertical, garden or whatever is in there? The steps were there alone.
The steps were there, but the garden area was there as well. I just don't know about the materiality of it. It looks like it was modified and cut when the entrances were changed.
Yeah.
So here you can see the planters were present originally, but obviously with this window closest towards the corner of the building, that has now become the main egress and entrance for the residential lobby.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Devonshire.
Yeah, Andrew, thanks. I'm just curious, is that Stony Creek granite?
I don't know off the top of my head, but we'll get the masons to match the granite and request samples of that so that we're we're doing as close a match as can be. And currently the steps are a little dirty, so we will clean and perform revitalization of the steps in the area that we're working.
Cool. Looks like Stony Creek, Connecticut. That's great.
Okay, great. Commissioner Bland. Oh, you're muted. Just mute.
I'll follow along with that same thought since I am speaking to you live from Stony Creek, Connecticut, right this minute. So that's not really a question, or it was going to be a question, but I heard the answer. So it's just point of information at this moment.
Okay, great. Other questions?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's move to public testimony. And if you're, oh, Commissioner Jefferson, please go ahead. Did you have a question?
Yes, a technical question. How high is the landing on the sidewalk? Is it over 6 inches?
The landing, it depends depending on where you take the measurement. So over on the right side, it's only about 5.5, but over on this side, it's more like 7.5. So it changes, it varies based on the slope of the sidewalk.
So the question I have, do you need a second railing, the interior railing? Do you need it if it's under 6 inches?
Are you asking about the railing at the ramp side or at the stair
The
side,
ramp.
or both?
The ramp side, because 6 inches, if the ramp only goes up 6 inches, you don't need a railing. So in terms of this composition, it would be better to just have one railing, the beautiful railing in front.
So the platform will be slightly over 6 inches, and we don't know if we will be able to fit it within the existing conditions with under 6. So we placed the railing there so that we could ensure the ADA compliance, but we couldn't guarantee until we get shop drawings and construction happening whether we would be able to fit it in less than 6 inches for the ramp.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Okay, we'll now move to public testimony. And if you'd like to speak on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you, and I'll turn it over to Anthony Fabre.
We have one sign up for this item, and that's John Graham, and I'll bring him in. John, you should be in the meeting now.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society. The Victorian Society in New York supports this proposal. The proposed ramp will affect small areas of historic material at the steps, but will replace it with matching granite at the ramp and landings, thus maintaining this high quality material and helping the ramp fit visually into the entrance ensemble. Likewise, the simple brass railings match the historic material of the entrance. In this case, the proposed simple approach to the metalwork seems best to avoid visually competing with the elaborate entrance infill. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We don't have any more signups, and I do not see any hands raised for this item.
Okay, and Rich, did we receive any additional written testimony?
No additional written comments, and I'll just note that the community board we'd review.
Okay, thank you. All right, any final questions, commissioners? And would the applicant like to make any final comments before we close the hearing?
I don't think so. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you. All right, so commissioners, I'm starting to request to unmute you, so look for that so we can close the hearing. And Commissioner Holford-Smith, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
Motion to close the hearing.
And Commissioner Gustafson, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the hearing is closed, and we'll begin our discussion on the modifications to this entrance to create barrier-free access, which involves the minimal removal of fabric at the step and a new ramp with matching materials. Commissioner Devonshire, would you like to start the discussion?
Yes, I wish they were all this appropriate. I'm in favor.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Chen, he's still here? No, he's not here. Commissioner Bland.
Good.
There. I always forget what a completely fabulous building this is. So worthy of exactly that perfect solution that Commissioner Devonshire just spoke of. I think this is very elegant, simple, straightforward, and uses some of the same materials of the existing. And I do hope it is Stony Creek granite that matches it. I'm about half a mile from the quarry.
Sarah, may I interrupt?
Of course, please go ahead.
When you go to the Stony Creek Quarry, Daryl Pettit, the guy who runs the quarry, can actually show you in the different levels of stone where this came from. He knows where the Statue of Liberty stuff came from. He knows where each of the different monuments came from within the quarry. It's fascinating.
That's beautiful.
Sorry.
And further, if any of you dare come to Stony Creek and don't come to somewhere else nearby, I will disown you all.
I smell barbecue.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner Lutfi.
Very well done. I can support it.
Okay, great. Commissioner Jefferson.
Very well done. I love the detail on the left-hand side by the handrail. Nicely done.
Okay. Commissioner Gustafson.
And so we're back to take it easy on the Commissioner's Day. Fabric design function that you had me at pink granite. We're done.
Okay. Commissioner Shamir Barron.
Very appropriate.
And Commissioner Holford Smith.
Very well done.
Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I agree. It's very well done, and also minimal stuff. I think it's it's fine. Thank you.
And Commissioner Goldblum.
It is of course appropriate. I have to indulge in an old architect moment. I did the lobby for this building about in the 1980s, a long time ago when I was working for someone else. I don't know if I should say that on a public record because it didn't come out as well as I would have hoped, but it was fascinating being part of this building and learning about it. The interiors are so crazy, and it's a fantastic, wonderful building, and it brings back mixed memories. But it's very nice to see this appropriate addition.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we're all in agreement that this ramp is very appropriate. It involves a minimal amount of removal of fabric. It's very transparent. It uses materials that relate to the building fabric and will not detract from this entrance. So Commissioner Devonshire, would you please go ahead and make the motion?
Yes. In the matter of LPC 2106-190 for Lexington Avenue, the Russell Sage Foundation Building and Annex, an individual landmark, an application to install barrier-free access ramp. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed ramp will provide barrier-free access in the least intrusive manner possible, that the installation will involve the removal of only a portion of the granite entry steps, thereby limiting the removal of original historic fabric. That the proposed materials of the ramp, including pink granite brass railings, will harmonize with the materials and finishes of the building. The proposed ramp will incorporate stair access into its design, thereby maintaining an element of the original entrance conditions. That the relocation of the operable door within the historic entrance infill will not result in removal of any historic fabric and will maintain the historic configuration of the entrance while aiding in barrier-free access to the building. And the proposed work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of this individual landmark.
All right, thank you. And Commissioner Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. Rich, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Shamir Barron,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen, I don't believe is with us at the moment. Commissioner Devonshire,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith,
Aye.
and I believe I missed somebody else. Did I miss
Me.
Commissioner Chapin? Yes.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin? Aye. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. With 10 in favor and unopposed, the motion carries.
All right, so that's approved. Thank you very much. And we'll move to the next and final item.
Yes, and that is item number 4, LPC 21-06891, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 1404, lot 59, 130 East 70th Street in the Upper East Side Historic District. This is an Italianate Second Empire style row house designed by John Sexton and built in 1869, and the application is to reclad the facade.
The applicants have joined the hearing. You now have control of the presentation. You just need to click on the screen to advance. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
My name is Rita Marks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay. Built in 1869, 130 East 70th Street was one of the 5 row houses built at the same time in the Italianate Second Empire style by John Sexton. They have all been altered over time. I would like to get to page 3. Thank you. In January 2006, an application was made to Landmarks for a full renovation of the property. What was approved and what you see in the photo: resurfaced brownstone using a cementitious mix painted pine cone brown, and this was confirmed by a probe. The areaway with an untinted concrete stamped paver. An areaway gate was added, but the ironwork was not original, although its age is not known. The stoop was parged and painted, including the steps. The work was referred to in the Landmarks approval as restorative in nature and deemed to bring the facade closer to the historic fabric. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with the pages.
So you can use the arrow keys up and down.
Yeah, but they're not working very well. Okay, here I'm on page 4. That's where I want to be. Our building is set back 8 feet as all the adjacent buildings have been pulled forward, altering the street wall. Our stoop projects 5 feet past into the sidewalk. You can see the variety of styles. Number 134, the Walker and Gillette renovation Oliver Cope Architects did, where the new facade sits below the parlor floor windows. The Neo-Georgian redone in 1914 at number 132. 128 was redone in 1905, also in Neo-Georgian style. Only the building on Lexington Avenue, number 136, remains intact, although its base has been severely altered by the commercial wrapping around the corner to Lexington Avenue. Sorry, guys.
So Ms. Marks, if you like, I can take over the presentation.
I love that.
and just
I'm on
advance.
page 5. That would be really great. Let me call out the page number and we could keep going.
Sure, let me just get back there. And
Page
you can
5.
just say next slide when you're ready.
Thank you very much. We are proposing to restore, bring back the facade one step closer to its historic appearance. We are installing 2-inch thick sandstone above the water table to match the historic brownstone, carving the decoration or decorative trim out of blocks. We are adding depth and shadow to the front that was lost when it was stripped of its details. We have added a rusticated base below the water table of 4-inch thick stone with a lightly tooled texture and are richly trimming the windows. The stoop will be rebuilt in stone and the ironwork replaced. The areaway will be paved in bluestone and the sidewalk will be bluestone for the 20 feet of its width. A natural gas lantern will hang above the entry door, and the entry door, which the owner says is a reproduction as of the 2006 renovation, will be remade as a 2-panel door. The arched window, its Victorian leaded detail, will be simplified. While the drafted elevation on the left suggests a strong stone pattern is visible through the paint, that it's misleading. The surface is superficially scored and the stone pattern is faint. Next, please. Page 6. The rendering on the right shows you how we have taken the spirit of the original and have updated it. Our building is visually buried in the shadow of its neighbors. We want to give it depth and add and enhance its details. The proposed stonework starts below the existing cornice, which is to remain. We are repainting it black as is currently the stone color. A 1-inch high by 3/4-inch reveal carried up the building makes reference to the neighbors. The height of our blocks corresponds to the new head and sill heights of our existing windows, resulting in a block height in proportion to our own building. Next, please. In response to comments from the senior staff, we did take a closer look at the block heights between the scored reveals on the neighboring townhouses. While we find our rusticated base coursing matches at 5 blocks high, our neighbors have an additional block in the run between their window head and sill. We are working within proportions of our own facade and setting our reveals to align to the head and sill of our own windows. We work to maintain a block height dimension as consistent as possible between stories as you go up our building. Next, please. These are detailed photos of the existing entry door and the demi-lume window above it. Next, please. Detail of the reproduced door, and the detail on the right is that upper panel at the top of the door and the demi-lume window in the lower right. Next, please. The tax ID photo and the precedent image the owner asked us to use for inspiration on East 81st Street. Next, please. On the right, a close-up of the head and sill we've referenced in our details, and on the left, we use the rusticated entry door from an Upper East Side townhouse as inspiration for our proposed entry door opening that was seen on page 5. Next, please. This is a material board. The center photo shows the color match we were able to get with the sandstone, the tool-based stone on the lower left photo, and the bluestone sample on the right. Next, please. Garden level detail. We've done a bunch of details showing the texture and arched window jamb to give depth to the facade. The facade base is currently stepped forward at the water table line, and we are able to use 4-inch veneer stone here. This gives us enough depth to add a carved casing back to the existing windows. Next, please. The entry door. We bring the stone reveal detail into the opening up to a wood liner that holds the new entry door and the revised half-round leaded glass window. We show the start of the 2-inch veneer stone just below the existing cornice line and the detail at the parlor window panel. Note that while there is a mortar joint, it's in shadow and the mortar will be tinted. These are plan details sections at the upper windows. This is a detailed section through an upper window. The pinning detail will be further developed, and we'll have an engineer for the attachments. A series of probes that were just completed shows that we have 1 inch of cementitious parging that we can remove, and that gives us 3 inches to work with. This is a detail of the elevation and side view of the upper window sill and head. This is our existing stoop. We're making no dimensional change to either the areaway or the stoop. While the material you see here will be replaced. The bluestone sidewalk will run the width of the building. The ironwork, which we do not believe is original, will be replaced with the design seen on the next sheet. The iron patterns for the buildings in the Upper East Side area, the client asked us to propose. We are showing the stainless steel cap detail that we used at 134 East 6th. This is a close-up on the left of these.
I think there is some background noise and we are having difficulty hearing you now. All right. Ms. Marks?
Yep, there's.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to sum up. On the left, did you hear that? Existing ironwork. Our block In summary, our block is evidence of the change in taste and style over the centuries. Our proposal is sensitive to the past, as its original sits right down the block. It makes effort not to imitate, but to acknowledge and make reference to the design vocabulary that takes us closer incrementally to the past without direct imitation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions on the choice of materials or details? Okay, I think we don't have questions at this time. Let's move to public testimony, and we may have questions after that. So if you're in the meeting and would like to speak on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you. And I'll turn it over to Anthony to walk us through the testimony.
Thank you. We do have some signups, and the first person that I will bring in is Kelly Carroll. Kelly, you should be in the meeting now.
There we go. Kelly Carroll, Historic Districts Council. For all the efforts being made to reinstitute texture to this facade, HDC was surprised that the original features are not being restored. The tax photograph provides a compelling plea for the building's original design, complete with a pedimented entry and window surrounds. In this case, HDC recommends restoration rather than reinvention. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last sign up is John Graham. John, you should be in the meeting now.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham. The VSNY is in the strongest possible way opposed to this proposal to reclad the facade at 130 East 70th Street. Commissioners, the applicant has three excellent sources for information on the original design of this row house. The first is the good, clear tax photo shown on board 4. The second is a photo from 1915, which the VSNY located in the collection of the Museum of the City of New York, showing the eastern half of the facade at 130 in conjunction with the building at 132 East 70th. And the third, shown on board 7, is the existing facade of the row house at 136 East 70th, designed as part of the same row of 5, 128 to 136 East 70th, by architect John Saxton. Whether intentionally or not, the applicant has disregarded all three sources for their redesign, most specifically at the keystone design at the basement windows, the circular panel design and pediments at the parlor floor windows, and the very important bracketed, arched, and pedimented door surround at the main entrance. This may be the only chance in 50 years to bring this facade back to its original appearance and reinforce the very important connection to the remaining house at 136. We urge that the proposal be modified to replicate all the well-documented details shown in the historic photos and at 136. Finally, Commissioners, the VSNY would like to comment on 3 additional points of this presentation. First, the applicant has proposed the use of a treated sandstone cladding. We'd be interested to learn more about the performance of this material and its similarity in appearance to brownstone before commenting on its appropriateness. Second, the stoop and areaway railings are very minimal modern wrought iron replacements. We urge the applicant to base their design on the stylistically more appropriate cast iron railings shown as a neighborhood precedent on board 33. Third, we support the replacement of the concrete sidewalks with bluestone. Concrete is more typical of the 20th century development and redevelopment of the Upper East Side Historic District, but a bluestone sidewalk is entirely appropriate for this mid-19th century house. Its presence will further the understanding of the district's mid-19th century roots. Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Thank you. And we have 1 hand raised for Friends of the Upper East Side. You should be in the meeting now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Laura Variali, representing Friends of the Upper East Side Historic Districts. Chair Carroll and Honorable Commissioners. Friends appreciates the effort to restore some of the decorative detail that have been stripped off from this Italianate row house. We are, however, concerned about the lack of proportion of the doorway enframement. Historically, the enframement would be more robust and 3-dimensional as compared with the proposed one. Friends Preservation Committee takes issue with the replacement of the main door and half-moon transom window. These significant features seem to be the only remaining original details of the row house, and their removal would represent a significant loss to the building. Additionally, the use of a tulle finish at the ground floor seems inconsistent with the row house style, and we are unsure about the need for this detail. Finally, we're not opposed to the proposed pavement nor the detailing, railing, and fence. Nevertheless, we are reluctant about the useless of stainless steel. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no more signups, and I do not see any other hands raised for this item.
Thank you. And Rich, did we receive any additional written testimony?
We received a resolution from Manhattan Community Board 8 and they recommended approval.
Great. Okay, thank you. All right, I'd like to turn back to the applicant. Ms. Marks, would you like to respond to the comments, particularly the comments and questions about the choice of details and materials?
We found that the sandstone that we selected would match quite almost exactly, if you look at the material board, to the color and certainly the texture of the current facade. That we can't get Portland brownstone, but we can manage to get as close as we can to what that looks like in the end. And it was a deliberate decision to not imitate the original facade. Yes, we do have access, a very good access to the documents that showed what we could do if we wanted to match it, but it was our choice not to. And we felt that we could, since in 2006, when the original, the developer attempted to, and it got approved, the facade as you see it, that he was taking a step toward the history of the building. He was not asked to replicate it at that time, and we felt that we could, once again, move a little closer without having to imitate what we see in the tax ID photo. So this was a deliberate approach.
Okay, any final questions, commissioners?
Yeah.
Commissioner Goldblum.
I'm sorry. So let me just push you on that a little bit. You're spending all the money necessary to perfectly replicate it, yet you're making aesthetic decisions not to. Explain why. Why is that? I mean, clearly the previous guy wasn't spending the money you're spending. So he didn't do details, but he did the details that he did were in the direction of the original. Why are you choosing to go in a different direction?
If you compare the existing facade on the left of this image, I'm not certain he actually made any effort to approach the original details. Everything has been left flat and shadowless. And I don't know how much money they spent to get to this point. And I think that if we had, there you go, it's a really good comparison, that using real stone is an honest and a good decision about what that building should look like and not parging. And we all know when you see parged buildings in the neighborhood, we know what we're looking at. I don't know how to, we didn't, just to repeat myself, we did not want to go to full imitation of the former and original facade. That was a basic decision. We're trying to create something that, as I said, gave this building more importance, using details we see in the neighborhood and partially did see on the upper floors of the original building, but we were asked not to use the triangular pediments on the parlor floors, nor the floral brackets and decorated keystones from the original. You
were asked by the owner or by Landmark staff?
No, by the owner. This isn't really where he wanted to take it, and we thought we could successfully create a facade that would get us closer to where the original, but we did not want to imitate what we saw in the tax ID photo.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Chapin. Diana?
Yes, the
okay.
door, I'm unmuting. The door, what, I realize you're talking about, as you just discussed, doing, moving in different directions in some cases. What do you regard as the sort of historical precedent for, or local precedent for this sort of approach to the door instead of the double door that would be more typical panel door, and which appears probably was the original? Where did this direction for this particular door come from?
Well, it was also a request to simplify the door, which we think was a reproduction. If you look at the close details, it doesn't appear original. I think the demi-lune window may have been, but we are happy. We discussed what we felt very strongly about the door and replacement. The demi-lune window above was not a strong ask. And then if you felt that it would best that we take the door that we have and keep it, we're open to that.
Well, not necessarily the current door if it is not historic, but it just I would think, looking at some of the other buildings, that more typically it would have been a double door. So that was my question. It was just simplification rather than some a model that you had seen somewhere or thought was that you were guided by. Okay, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Jefferson, please go ahead. Just unmute yourself.
Two questions. The cornice, you elected to paint it a dark brown. And what's the size of the joints in your new proposal? They seem to be quite large.
The joints are 1 inch high by 3/4 wide, and they are consistent with the neighborhood. They go from 1.5 to 3/4, depending upon what building you measure from. The landmarks approval in 2006 said that the cornice was to be painted black, but today you see it in pine cone brown. I don't know when it was repainted, if it was ever painted correctly the first time, but we're going to go back to the prior approval and paint it black. See the picture on the left, it's a brown now.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Okay, other questions? Okay, I think we are ready to close the hearing and begin our discussion. So I'm sending a request to unmute you all. And Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
Motion to close the hearing.
And Commissioner Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. And it's been presented. This is a building that retains some features that are indicative of their original style and has been stripped of others. And the proposal is to resurface or reclad the facade with a new sandstone material and to create details that are sort of evocative of other details in the district, but not specifically recreating the original details found, sort of the remaining remnants of them found on the existing building, and then the full expression that we can see in the tax photo. So it's an interpretive approach looking to the general historic district for this sort of more stripped area of the facade. So I think we'll have an interesting discussion. And Commissioner Holford-Smith, would you like to start this discussion?
Sure. Well, I applaud the applicant for the extent to which they plan to restore the facade, to use actual brownstone rather than to use stucco. And I think overall, it's quite a good application. But I am concerned about the interpretation that they're making at the parlor floor. It seems like they're going to this extent to restore the facade, then they really should be restoring it to its original appearance and not some interpretation in between based on other buildings in the area. I think that the door, even though it may not be original, it appears to be original to the design, the original, appearance. So that I think that door should remain, as well as the demi-lune window, which may in fact be original. So I'll be curious to hear what other commissioners have to say about this interpretation, but it does trouble me a bit.
Right. Okay. And it's, I think one of the things that's sort of interesting, and we can parse this out in our discussion, is that there are the sort of the baseline remnants that are still there upon which the other ornament was layered up. And this proposal isn't just additive, it actually would remove those pieces and then add something different. So sometimes when we look at interpretations on buildings that are contributing buildings, we look at them as sort of interim steps, but this is not just additive. So that's something to think about. Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I have the same sort of waiting to see what other people were going to say about this. It's we often see, reconstructions that are, they have to be imaginative. We really don't know what was going on originally. And it isn't that this is a bad one, it's an interesting one, but it's rather rare that we actually know really what was there and you could really reproduce it. And while we don't want something that's foul, this is what a real restoration could happen here. So I kind of hate to see that opportunity lost when you have something available. If we didn't, I would think, yeah, this is just fine. I mean, in general. And particularly, I also, with the door, I don't think that needs to be, unless it's established this was the door, or is exactly what the door was originally or something. I think they could put in another door, but I think it ought to have, it really should be a double door. It just doesn't look like an appropriate door for this building. So that's where I'm at this point. Interested to hear what others have to say.
Okay, sure. Commissioner Goldblum.
All right, thank you. I mean, it is an interesting project, and it shows you how we take a blatant double standard when it comes to classical architecture. And I think that that's appropriate, but it's an interesting double standard. If the applicant had said, you know what, this has been a heavily modified building, and we want to do a modern interpretation, that clearly sought to distinguish itself in a style that was different from the original building style, we would have looked at it for what it was worth and said yes or no based on the quality of the interpretation. But here, the applicant is choosing to go back to the exact period of the building's original design and do a project that could have been a replication, which we permit. We permit the replication of historic details to the greatest fealty possible, but is purposefully choosing to make choices other than those that the original architect was known to have made. Therefore, it's really doing a creative essay in a historic style that could have been from 1880 or whenever the building was built. And that, I think, puts forth an image of false history. It's not saying that it's from today, right? The use of quality historic materials or historically analogous materials is thorough and consistent. It's not saying that it's from 2021. It's saying that it's from 1880. And yet it's not the 1880 that the original architect envisioned for this building on this site. So therefore, I would say that they should hew to the precise example that this architect used on this site in doing a project that resembles or that seeks to bring the building back to that period. And with that in mind, I think the applicant should look at the detailing of the railing as well, because I think it's true that the railing would have probably been a cast iron railing and not a not made of bent and hammered sticks. It would have been cast. And I'm okay with the bluestone. And I don't think the door needs to go back to what was there, but I think it has to use the historical resources available the way we would apply them in any other restoration recreation project.
Okay, Commissioner Devonshire?
Yeah, pretty much I agree with everything that Commissioner Goldblum has said. You know, we're not asking for anything onerous. We actually have all of the information that we need to make this a proper replication. The only other thing I would add is that historically, the cornice would have been painted to appear like stone. In many cases, actually, it would have been sanded paint to give it a texture, even that high up on the building. And so I would say that the cornice also needs to be brown, not black.
Okay. Commissioner Bland?
Yeah, so interesting. I'm falling in the same camp, and I think Michael Goldblum has laid it out pretty well, using the word false history, the term false history, and I think that's what this would be. We hate to use the overused term of Disneyfication, but I think this is kind of what that would be. Nice interpretation, but it's an interpretive thing that may or may not be great. I mean, I can't really judge it that much, but when you have all the evidence of what was there, I just can't imagine not using it. It seems a little I don't know, arrogant almost. So I would think that you know, we should use what's there. I mean, this owner wants to do a great job here. It appears, and spend a lot of money doing it. And I just think if he or she are going to go to all this effort, it really ought to be an interpretation of what was there, and let's let the history of the district kind of read more clearly. Certainly the bluestone, I have no objection to that at all. But the rest of it is, I mean, we don't need to go through the details, but I guess most of it is on the parlor floor. But I think this needs to be kind of rethought conceptually, philosophically.
Okay, and I think, you know, I agree that there's something about this that makes it read as a little bit false or misstep or missed opportunity. And I'm trying to think about why, because we have seen there are many, many, many row houses on the Upper East Side that are stripped and are identified as no style. And in those applications, we have done, we've approved new facades in a classically inspired style that picks up elements from around the district. And so in some cases, they are sort of clear that they're modern interpretations, but other times I think that they are trying to look like something that was built at the same period or built in the, you know, the 1920s, early 20th century, when the row houses, so many of the row houses were redesigned. So in some ways, I think we do that all the time. And I think the reason here is it feels a little bit off is because while it's stripped in the middle and there is room for enhancing the ornamentation, I think there are enough other features that it feels like you want it to be more true or honest to its period to go along with those extant features. But sorry to interject. Commissioner Lutfi, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I have to say I'm in complete agreement. And also, in addition to the sort of the conversation that Michael Goldblum started, I also want to include that I agree with Michael Devonshire's thoughts about the cornice, and it doesn't make sense. So I think that they should try to go back to what it was.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Jefferson.
Yes, this is fascinating. This is a modernist idea of kind of collaging. And what it does, it takes a replication and then it takes interpretation and puts it together. and creates this facade. And yet when I look at the facade, originally I thought, gee, but it's quite powerful. It's strong. I mean, it compared to its neighbors, it's been brought up a bit. It's more upfront. It's stronger. I mean, look at on the right-hand side. It's quite powerful. And I agree with the fellow commissioners, but I'm also ambiguous about, the presence of it has changed, and it's just a different aesthetic approach. But, I'll go with my fellow commissioners.
Okay, Commissioner Gustafson?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with a lot of what's been said. It's, for me, the issue is that it seems to be neither fish nor fowl. It's not. It doesn't have internal integrity, and I guess I would focus on something that I had a problem with on my own house, which was the door. It's not that they need to keep the one that's there. It's that the style of the one that's there is what is appropriate to the building. So they could leave what's there, but they could also, there's a lot of other choices there, but they chose something that's sort of this is building A and they went to one from building B or building C that doesn't actually, it's not internally cohesive with this structure. So I do think they need to sort of globally rethink this.
Okay, and Commissioner Shamir Baron.
Well, it's a little tough for me because, of course, I agree with everyone that this might not be a true restoration. But as you've said, we have in so many cases approved and kind of supported along things that were kind of, as you said, classically inspired. So I'm having a difficult time sort of penalizing this applicant for doing exactly that. And so so my question is, do we think that the applicant could, for instance, work with staff to make sure that the details that they have proposed are, have a level of refinement and cohesion that makes sense for what they're proposing? Is that sufficient? I would say that for me it is, even though I might have wanted for a kind of a deeper restoration.
Yeah, I know. I feel I'm sort of where you are, Adi, and that's sort of on the fence, because I feel that, it is stripped and we have approved new features that are, in keeping with the style of features in the district. And so for me, I think, if it's not a true restoration that sort of brings it back, that maybe at least the remnants that are there, if those could be retained and then sort of added to in a way that didn't maybe preclude someone in the future coming in and doing the final pediments or other things. So I sort of feel that one could do, based on our sort of regulatory history here, one could, in this stripped area, and particularly at the parlor floor, do something a little more interpretive and maybe sort of a more incremental approach, as opposed to a kind of redesign, if not a restoration. So, but I think other people would like to see restoration. So I think we are not at a point where we can take an action today, and we'll ask the applicants to continue to work with the staff and to rethink some of their choices and come back to us as soon as they're ready. Yes, Michael, Commissioner Goldblum, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I thought your comments were very interesting. And when I was thinking about them, I thought that in my recollection, which is certainly not as good as yours, most of the plasticizing reskinnings that we've seen on stripped buildings have not been to the style of the period of the building itself. In other words, they've been taking Victorian buildings and making them vaguely neo-Renaissance or Baroque or Upper East Side,
Beaux-Arts, yeah.
Right. And that in and of itself is an act that is supported by the history of the district. Whereas you can see from this photograph, there are times, every other house has been reinterpreted you know, sometime in the teens, 20s,
Right.
to be something else. So I think that, you know, that's a choice that's different than this choice, you know, because they were choosing to go back to the exact same period, the exact same date, just a different, you know, just a different look. So for me, that's what makes it a little different than the other ones we've seen.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you for putting it that way. Yeah. Okay, so we will not take an action today, and we'll ask the applicants to continue to work with the staff. And I want to thank everybody for your hard work today and commitment and dedication. And hopefully you have a little bit of a break this afternoon since we're concluding a little bit early. And we'll see you all next week. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.